This week, in our channel message from the angels, they have given us some fascinating details about the angels themselves. We often think about angels as being a lot like us, like being individual personalities, identities. We think of them as tall beings with wings, and they can show up that way, but their true essence is something a little different. And here they tell us all about it, and it's really amazing. They talk about as well miracles. So, details about miracles and what we can expect to come in our near future. So thank you so much for being here, you guys. I'm so grateful to be able to share these messages with you. Thank you for being part of this community. And for those of you who are new, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel from the angelic realm. And I do that by going into a deep meditative state or trance. And from that state, I raise my awareness as high as I can go. And then I go a little higher, I connect. And then messages, healing, and information comes through. And I share it here with you guys on YouTube. So my format is I'm going to share the original channeling with you, and then which I did previously, and then after that I will come back and we will break it down, talk it through. Because sometimes, as you are listening to the message, there's always a lot of frequencies that are coming through, and sometimes those frequencies, as you're kind of bathing in the energy, it can be hard to hang on to the words, so the actual meaning of what they're saying. So we just get a lot more out of it when we break it down. So all right, take a deep breath, if you will, get centered, get grounded, and here we go. Blessings. We begin speaking. We renew ourselves daily in the moment. With the motion of our wings, we spread ourselves outward and cover the earth with dawning vibrations. We move between clouds, which suffer their own spreading across, divestiture from the earth, moving outward, spreading, condensing, moving like whispers in the wind. We move always, always untethered, in non-belonging to what is the earth, always moving gently against her safe harbors, never between or within them. We are outside of physicality, outside of what is Earth's reach. Within her bosom, there is caretaking. There is an energetic turmoil that renews itself gently within itself, giving and receiving, anchoring itself not in loss, but in the recognition of its own tenderness, unfolding, refolding, endowing and re-endowing each other endlessly. The survivors of the tempest, of what is Earth's digression from herself and revival within each moment. It is the structuring of the chaos that creates the beauty of this place that you are in. And we are outside of this. We are not within it, apart from the structure of her heavens and her bounty. We are, however, a part of yourselves. We are within your breath, within the goodness of your heart space. We are always within, endowed with the presence of the divine, the guidance to be of service, the structuring of our relief, which we may provide to yourselves, hopeful comment, guidance, and yes, as saviors. We shall rise in the times that are coming into greater physicality than we have yet known for yourselves. We shall be endowed with form sometimes. We shall rise in the moment to become what is mentionable, what can be seen, what can be felt, as if the suggestive nature of ourselves vibrates into presence and we become known more deeply. Presence-full. We are endowed with divinity. The grace of the divine itself vibrates within us and attunes to the spaciousness which we allow it. It vibrates in harmony with what we are. In the careworn shape of this earth's passion and presence, we take form as what is needed, as what is most present. We take form into need, into diagnosing, into understanding, and yes, into relief. In the momentary guidance that we are providing, you do not care to hear us to the degree that we are speaking, for the language of ourselves is not known to you yet. It is not a language of breath and bone, of syllables and pronouncements, but the fleetingness of feelings. It is as if the language of angels can be known and interpreted as wind, as the buoyancy and the conflagration of many things at once. It is as if the turmoil, a storm of leaves rising in the wind, a great swirl, and letting go, and it announcing expectation of presence. And this is us. We are not bound to language such as yourselves are speaking. We do, however, speak ourselves into tangibility. We have within us the capacity to diagnose, to analyze, to discuss, and to separate from what is to the degree that is necessary to combine ourselves into the words that you are hearing. But we have not the desire to remain as such, to stay within the confines of the spoken form of sound. We prefer to vibrate like the wind, effervescent, temperamental at times, as if the jet stream might pick us up all at once and guide or direct us to where there is the greatest void or concentration of energy. And thus we move ourselves within the great flow of consciousness that is humanity, driven within the thought forms that you are creating. We are amongst yourselves linguistically, vibrationally, emotionally, powerfully. We are within, around, and amongst yourselves. And we shall become increasingly influential in the times that are coming. We shall make ourselves known to you more proudly, more deeply, more connectedly. There shall be times of your survival where our presence is emanated from within ourselves, and you may see us, feel us, touch us, know us as personable, as if we are people. You may sense from us the great care we have, that we take for humanity, the loving presence that combines within our nature to create fortitude, strength, amiability. We are love itself wrapped within presencelessness. We are forever, always wrapped in the angelic concentration of essence. As we come into form, descend into the structure, the rigidity of what is now formless, as the new realities begin to stem from within you, we shall find ourselves put in a place of great advantage for yourselves, in between the anchors that divide you from what is now and the new times coming. And we shall have within us the potentials to care for you, to provide for you, to assist and guide you in more meaningful ways. the vibrations of your own working, of what is required, what is needed for your comfort at the ready. These we shall be empowered to assist with, not as we have been, not as the gust of wind, as the fragment of consciousness that appears as if it is your own words or your own thinking, not as the gust that lifts you when most needed, but as the physically tangible assistant that may present themselves at the ready. The guidance that we shall share shall be at the directive of your own journey, what is most required. When is our presence appropriate? In times of great suffering and great need. In times of exaltation, we are always nearby, but need not physicalize. In times of your greatest need, the density surrounds you to such a degree that you cannot always perceive us. In those times, we shall mollify that which is anxiety with presence, and shall come to your side, sometimes felt, sometimes seen, with methods by which we can advise you. Not always in every instance, but where we are felt to be on earth in the consciousness already invited into presence within you. Emplacements of your own diagnosis of self as worthy of the light, wherein your struggles are not buried within a consciousness that cannot elevate itself, but within a heart that is open to its truth. Here we may anchor our own light and emanate from within into your perception. We wish to guide you wherein there can be efforting done for your advantage. We wish to regain the solidity of our own footing within those moments. For once we have made ourselves into physicality and presence in a moment, not as though birthed into the physical structure, but as beings who came and went, and so choosing to do so for the greater purpose of their own voyaging. In these times that are presenting themselves very soon, the greater part of our vocabulary will be expanding, and it may usher us into presence where needed, where desired, and wherein your own hearts create the opening. We say blessings, thank you, goodbye.
All right, so welcome back, and let's go ahead and break down the message. And I'll just read it to you paragraph by paragraph, and then we'll talk through the meaning. So in the first paragraph, they say, blessings, we begin speaking. We renew ourselves daily in the moment with the motion of our wings. We spread ourselves outward and cover the earth with dawning vibration. So I love this idea. They say that they renew themselves daily with the movement of their wings. So what that brings to mind to me is, how do we renew ourselves? Is that when we want to renew ourselves, right, we take a breath, and that's like what we think about is the first moment of life is a deep breath. The first thing in the morning we get a big stretch and a deep breath. We renew ourselves with that in and out of the breath, and look at what that motion is, right? For the angels, it's the beating of the wings. So are the wings actual wings, or are they a metaphor for this idea the opening, the breath, the expansion. So as I was saying, that they renew themselves. It's their way, their method. How do the angels renew themselves? They renew themselves daily, right? In the movement, with the motion of their wings. So like a breath, just like we do. And then they say, we spread ourselves outward and cover the earth with dawning vibrations. So dawn, in a previous message that we got, gosh, it might have even been a couple of years ago now, the angels gave us an amazing message called We Bring in the Dawn. I think that's the name of the message that I titled it, We Bring in the Dawn, or the angels bring in the dawn. And so dawning vibrations, dawning means the first appearance, the new beginning, the beginning where it's starting to grow light. It's also coming into existence, is the dawning of an era, right? Coming into existence. So it is that a concept of renewal, that the dawn brings renewal. And so the angels said, at the time that they gave us that message several years ago, they said that they ring in the dawn, they bring in the dawn, and that energy at dawn carries the energy of renewal. So it's that idea that it's a special energy, that if you are out in the moment of dawn, that you are actually being soaked in that vibration of renewal. That is actually a wonderful energy. And then I found out afterwards, totally fascinating, that the energy, the light that comes in at dawn, and if you look at the frequency of the light, this is from a scientific perspective, is that it is what we call red light, which they say is fabulous for renewal, which helps to renew your cells. And so you can go and get red light. There's all this red light treatment you can get now. That is the energy of dawn. So they say if you don't want to pay a bunch of money to go get red light treatment, just wake up at 5 a.m. and sit outside in your bathing suit, and get some of that energy. But that's the red light. That is the energy of dawn. But the angels here tell us, again, they refer back to that they cover the earth with dawning vibrations, with renewal. So I love that it really brings to mind the hopefulness that every day is a new day. Every day is a new opportunity. Every moment really is a new chance for us to see ourselves, to see the world differently, to change our lives. They go on to say, we move between clouds, which suffer their own spreading across divestiture from the earth, moving outward, spreading, condensing, moving, like whispers in the wind. And this is, by the way, a super poetic message. There's some glorious passages in this message, which I just loved. But divestiture, so they say that they move between clouds, and then they talk about the clouds themselves. So they're kind of like up, like they describe themselves as like, imagine that there's clouds out there. The angels are more nimble than the clouds, but they move like the clouds. I think about how the clouds, in a strong wind, you can watch the clouds just moving across the sky, and they seem, clouds separate and come together. Like we watch them, like if you identify shapes in the clouds, they don't stand still very long. They're constantly moving. So in the angels, they say, okay, they're moving between them. So it's an interesting thought to say, what breaks up the clouds? Maybe it's the angels, that's separating and moving the clouds so much, because they're moving between the clouds, the clouds suffer their own spreading across divestiture from the earth. So divestiture means, it has several meanings, and the angels like to do that. As you guys know, angel word of the week, divestiture. And one of the meanings is, like in the business world, divestiture means the selling off of subsidiary businesses. So it's like a big business that has a small business and it sells it off. So, but it's this whole, generally it's always referring to getting rid of something that you're like letting go of something, right? It is, and sometimes it is to undress something. It can also mean to undress. Or to strip of clothing, ornament, equipment. So take away, it's almost like taking away all of so think about what a cloud is. It is water which has been divested from the earth. So it was once sort of on the surface of the earth as water, and then because of the sun and evaporation, the sun, which is not part of the earth, kind of pulled that water away, right? And it has divested, it has pulled it away from earth, and now it's kind of up there, up in the, like the clouds are up there. They're water that has been divested from the earth, and divested meaning like separated and pulled apart and let go of, released, but also they have been stripped, right? Stripped of their earthly belonging. And I think that is what the angels are really trying to get to here, this concept of what is it to belong to the earth and what is it to not belong to the earth. And clouds used to belong to the earth because they were water, and now they don't anymore. They're separated, they're divested, right? And they describe it as not a good thing, right? That they say they suffer, right, being divested from the earth. So they're kind of setting a tone here, and now they move across, moving like whispers in the wind. So next paragraph, they say, we, the angels, move always, sort of like the clouds. They move always untethered in non-belonging to what is the earth. So this is what they're getting at. That clouds no longer belong to the earth. They've been divested or let go, right? And the angels do not belong to the earth. They say, always moving gently against her safe harbors, never between or within them. We are outside of physicality, outside of what is earth's reach. So it's really helpful for them to kind of to establish that from the get-go. Now, I happen to know that angels can incarnate, that they can come to earth, but they do not take on, typically, that what they take on is a light body. They don't take on a physical human body. There are some angelic souls who have incarnated into human bodies, but they then have to live out like a whole life, and they just become like a human who then becomes an angel again after they die. And there are some people like that, but the majority of angels who incarnate, and there are those who have incarnated to help us through our shift in consciousness, they incarnate into a light body, so we don't typically see them. But some people do. When people talk about seeing angels, those are the ones who are usually seeing, is the ones who are incarnated angels into light bodies. But typically, angels, that, like, as a general rule, by far the majority, because by the way, there's way more angels than there are humans, so like the massive majority are not incarnated, and that's kind of what they're referring to here. So we are outside of physicality, outside of what is Earth's reach, right? Next paragraph, within, and even when they incarnate, like I said, it's usually into a light body, not physical. Within her bosom, within the earth, there is caretaking. There is an energetic turmoil that renews itself gently within itself, giving and receiving, anchoring itself not in loss, but in the recognition of its own tenderness, unfolding, refolding, endowing and re-endowing each other endlessly. The survivors of the tempest, of what is Earth's digression from herself and revival within each moment. It is the structuring of the chaos that creates the beauty of this place that you are in. I find this to be one of the most beautiful descriptions of Earth I think I have ever heard. And I see this as being a description of the life cycles on Earth, about decay and growth and that cycle of constant return, right? To dust, ashes to ashes, and then what grows out of that and becomes new life. So within her bosom, within the bosom of Earth, there is caretaking. So there really is that, we think of it as a maternal place, right? There is an energetic turmoil on Earth that renews itself gently within itself. So it's that constant folding over. Even in our own bodies are a good mirror of that our own bodies are constantly renewing ourselves. Our cells die off and new cells are created. So that's the idea. Gently renewing itself from within itself, right? So the Earth does that, constantly turning over. Things die and decay and become something new. And then they say giving and receiving. They describe this as giving and receiving. So what dies gives that energy back to the earth receives that energy and builds something new. So there's this constant exchange of energy that's happening. And I think that's the key, is the exchange of energy internally within the system. That the energy stays constant, but the energy takes form, releases form, is given, received, over and over again. So then they say, anchoring itself not in loss, so that letting go, the death, in other words, or decay is not loss, but in the recognition of its own tenderness. And so that to me has a richness, because I think of the tenderness is like our human bodies are very tender. Like we bruise easily, we bleed easily. All life on Earth is wounded pretty easily, right? It's like a tree, break a branch, you can tear a leaf, it's woundable, it's tender. And all of the structures of life are very, very tender, and they give way remarkably easily. And so I think it is that softness, that the earth is soft, and that the life forms on earth are also very soft. So it is not in loss. So in other words, when something decays, the earth doesn't experience it as loss, but as a tenderness, almost like that softness. That softness is, it can be wounded easily, but it's also wonderful to snuggle up with. Think about a kitten. It's like it's snuggly and cute, but it's very delicate, very fragile. And the fragile things, the things that are really, really tough, are very hard to snuggle with. It's hard to snuggle with an anvil. It's very tough, but it's not very snuggly. It's not very tender. So it's that sweetness, right? Not in loss. So the tenderness is on purpose. I think the tenderness is a reflection of the personality of Earth, that it is soft, it is willing to be wounded in order to be loved. You know what I mean? To risk itself in tenderness so that it can receive love. Right? To be vulnerable. That's the idea. Our vulnerability is our tenderness, and that vulnerability allows us, it shows us, it exposes the soft underbelly so that we can be loved. So I think it's just a beautiful description. Right? Anchoring itself not in loss, but in the recognition of its own tenderness. And then they say unfolding, refolding, endowing, and re-endowing each other endlessly. So it's that cycle of life, turning over. And then this next part, very interesting. The saviors of the tempest of what is Earth's digression from herself and revival within each moment. So the survivors. So that is who lives, right? Those of us who stay standing, despite our tenderness and despite this constant decay and rebirth, that whoever's surviving, right? The survivors of the tempest. And there's that. So I like that they go from this tenderness to the tempest, that Earth has both. Earth has love. It also has fury. It has the full range of emotions. And that constant cycle of energy can also happen very quickly. And as we know, we can see enormous chaos all at once. So the survivors of the tempest, of what is Earth's digression from herself, which is the falling away and the rebirth, constant growth, constant change, and the revival in each moment, right? Decay and revival. Then they say it is the structuring of the chaos that creates the beauty of this place that you are in. So I just think, wow. I mean, to me, this is the most beautiful paragraph I think I've ever, for me personally, that I've heard in terms of describing the Earth. It's such a metaphysical level, I just love it. It is the structuring of the chaos that creates the beauty of this place that you are in. And so what that means is think about think about sacred geometry. And how you can have, if you just had chaos, if you just had one thing eating another, constant loss, constant taking from one thing to another, that's not very beautiful. What's beautiful is the falling away and the rebirth within the structures of sacred geometry, where things take on form that represents, right, the form of like the spiral that shows itself in so many different iterations, and then every new rebirth of the spiral, it takes on a new shape, a new form. But it's the structuring provides this kind of rhythm and order to the world, to the whole Earth, which is what we perceive as beautiful. It's interesting, I think the Greeks that came up with the golden mean, which was this idea that what is the most pleasing ratio to the human eye? It is 1/3, 2/3, that you're never going to draw a line straight down the middle of something in design. You're going to draw a line 1/3 up and leave 2/3 left, because it's more pleasing. That there are these ratios and these shapes and these mathematical equations that translate into geometry, which we identify as being the building blocks of what creates nature, of what creates everything on this earth, and is what we perceive as beauty. And that is the structure of the chaos. So yes, it's constant death or destruction or decay and constant rebirth, but that birth happens within a conversation that is structured by the sacred geometry, right? It's that's what creates the beauty. That's what makes Earth such a beautiful planet. Okay, moving on, next paragraph. And we, the angels, are outside of this, so they don't get to be part of all that, right? We are not within it. Apart from the structure of her heavens and her bounty, and they are apart from the structure of her heavens and her bounty. We are, however, a part of yourselves. So they are within. We are within your breath, within the goodness of your heart space. We are always within, endowed within the presence of the divine, endowed with the presence of the divine, the guidance to be of service. So I think this is interesting, because the angels talk a lot, like when I'm working with them and healing, they go in through the breath often, and they talk about breathe us in, that they They work on us, they heal us, they work a lot. Like our breath is such an important part of our connection to the divine. It is like the breath is the inspiration to respirate. It's all about spirit. Like the breath is how we bring in spirit. So the angels come in, they are the holding the divine energy. They come in with the breath. And so and then they reside. I know that each of us has a guardian angel, and part of the role of our guardian angel is to guard the spark of the divine that we carry in our heart. It is our ability to be divine creators, just like the divine. And so the angels, we have an angel, each have an angel specifically here to be with us, to guard that divine spark as we go through our journey, which is amazing. They say we are always within, endowed with the presence of the divine, the guidance to be of service. They're here to help us. The structuring of our relief, they say, which we may provide to yourselves. So here's what they provide: hopeful comment, guidance, and yes, as saviors. So they can help us. And you have probably heard incredible stories. I have, about people who have had incredible experiences of being pulled from a car wreck, or being, lifted from drowning, or, amazing things where they felt the angels, stepping in to save them. And so they are here for that purpose. But also, they say, provide hopeful comment. So it's like that idea. And sometimes the angels show up through other people, right? That word, that whatever it is, the word you need to hear, the redirection, the inspiration, the hope that lifts you out of despair, right? And guidance. So that is their role. All right, next paragraph, we put an exclamation point next to this one. So they say, and I think this is interesting, this is exciting. They say, we shall rise in the times that are coming into greater physicality than we have yet known for yourselves. We shall be endowed with forms sometimes. We shall rise in the moment to become what is mentionable. We can be seen, or what can be seen, what can be felt, as if the suggestive nature of ourselves vibrates into presence, and we become known more deeply. So this is super exciting. And this is something the angels have talked about a couple of times. They've said that when we get through to the shift in consciousness fully, that there will be times that some of us, I don't know, maybe all of us, I don't know, but we will be able at times to see angels, which is crazy. And I love to think about, like, imagine like someone like your, brother-in-law or whoever it is who's a total atheist and who doesn't believe all of your woo-woo stuff. And then imagine if he's the one that sees the angel walking down the street, and what a great conversation that is going to be. How amazing it will be. And I get tickled about that idea, that it's just like, yeah, that's hard to deny when you see one with your own eyes. But amazing for any of us. For any of us to see an angel. But apparently it is going to happen, and it will not be a rare thing that it will happen. And I love how they say that they say it is as if, they say they will become mentionable. So like obvious, we will be able to talk about them. We'll be able to see them. We can feel them, right? And then they say that that they vibrate into presence. So it's not going to be like they're born and go through a life. It'll be like kind of like, I use a lot of Star Trek references. I don't know. It's like, it's just, there's a lot of things Star Trek got right. But how they would like materialize and dematerialize? Like that's how I imagine it. Like they vibrate, like the whatever, the molecules just kind of like and become like angel, like right there. And then you can like see them, feel them, talk to them. So pretty amazing. Yeah, and we become known more deeply. So this is what is coming. I think there will be times. So the big question is when and how. Like what will cause an angel to come into physical presence with us after the shift in consciousness, after the flash of light? They go on to explain it and tell us. So they say, okay, next paragraph, presence full. We are endowed with divinity. So they have the divine inside of them. They say the grace of the divine itself vibrates within us and attunes to the spaciousness which we allow it. So it's just like us. They will hold as much divinity as they can, right? That the divine, God is my word, so please use yours, but God is infinite. And God will give us as much love as we are willing to take. And so they take as much as they can allow. So just like us, the angels have a maximum, right? They can get to full, right? How much love can you take? They get to a level of full as well. So as much spaciousness which we allow it, it vibrates in harmony with what we are, they say. So in other words, the divine grace as that comes in, it attunes to them, to what they are. They say, in the careworn shape of this earth's passion and presence, we take form as what is needed. So in the careworn shape of earth's passion and presence, we take form as what is needed, as what is most present. We take form, or was that present or pressing is what is most pressing? I have to go back and listen to the audio. We take form into need, into diagnosing, into understanding, and yes, into relief. So really, it's that idea of like here on earth, they recognize, boy, on earth, things get a little crazy sometimes. We have passion, right? We have all kinds of stuff that happens here. And when that happens, they take form as is needed. So where are they called to be? And they say, as what is most present, we take form into need, into diagnosing, into understanding, and yes, into relief. Next paragraph, they say, in the momentary guidance that we are providing, you do not care to hear us to the degree that we are speaking. And I love that they don't say you can't. They never say you can't, right? They say that we're not willing yet, right? That there's a piece of us. The only thing, this gets back to the idea, the only thing in our way is ourselves for everything, that we are infinite creative beings who could do anything. And the only thing in our way that's preventing us from hearing the angels is ourselves. Of course it is, because it's the only thing in our way is us. So they say that you do not care to hear us. It's not that we can't. We just don't care to yet. If we really wanted to, in a depth of our depth of all elements, right? There's going to be some part of us, some aspect of us somewhere that doesn't think we're worthy, right? That doesn't think that it's possible, that doesn't believe in angels, whatever, whatever it is, whatever happens to be our issue. And that is what's going to prevent us from hearing them. But it's not that we can't do it, right? We can. So in the momentary guidance that we are providing, you do not care to hear us to the degree that we are speaking. So they're speaking to us a whole lot more than we allow. They're going to say, for the language of ourselves is not known to you yet. It is not a language of breath and bone, of syllables and pronouncements, but the fleetingness of feelings. So in other words, so angels, when they speak their native tongue, which is not a tongue at all, they're saying it's not. There is no syllables, there's no breath, there's no bone. It's not, they're not pronouncing it. It comes more like a feeling, the fleetingness of feeling. So they have a totally different way of communicating, most likely much more like telepathy, but it sounds like it's like a feeling type of telepathy. Fleeting of feelings, the fleetingness of feelings. They go on to say, it is as if the language of angels can be known and interpreted as wind, as the buoyancy and the conflagration of many things at once. It is as if a turmoil, a storm of leaves rising in the wind, a great swirl and letting go, and it announcing expectation of presence. And this is us. Wow, what a visual, to think about that swirl. If you think about, if you've ever been in a place, like I live in the Northwest, we have a lot of trees, we get a lot of leaves on the ground, and it is an amazing thing when all of a sudden a gust of wind comes and picks up the leaves, and they swirl and rise up, and then all of a sudden the wind leaves, and the leaves just kind of rain slowly down, and it's beautiful, right? But think about that as and I love that they say here, and this I think is just so incredibly poetic, that they're talking about the expectation of it's announcing an expectation of presence. So when the wind picks up the leaves like that and it pulls it up into a swirl, it almost feels like the leaves are taking form. It feels like the leaves are becoming something, like it's almost like you can see a shape, right, that's filled with leaves. And then all of a sudden it stops, the wind stops, and then it just sort of dissolves, right? But it creates the expectation that it's something, that, oh, wow, the leaves are forming into a shape. It's becoming something, but then it doesn't, it lets go. And so they're saying, and it announcing that doing this gesture, like it's almost present, but it's not, which is such an interesting feeling about it. I think it's so suggestive, and yet not. It's not us. It's not what we are. It's what they are. It's the expectation of presence, right? It's a feeling which is like, ooh, here they come, and then they're not there, but still beautiful. The expectation is the beauty of it, And so they say, as the buoyancy in the beginning, they say, it is as if the language of angels can be known and interpreted as wind, as the buoyancy, and so which was like the floating and the lifting, and the conflagration, which is like on fire, like a burst of flame, of many things at once. So it's like things coming together, lifting and creating energy all at once. So like think about a gust of wind, how it can come out of nowhere and then whoosh, it comes through and picks up all the leaves, which is like a flame rises up out of nowhere. Like if you ever think that how flame can move so quickly and and then they say many things at once. It is as if a turmoil, a storm of leaves. So I have to tell you a super cool story about a dear friend of mine named Susan. Hello, Susan. How one time I was channeling for her about the angels, and I was in trance, and she was speaking to the angels through me, and she had been out that day, and this story is in my book, in this book right here, which is what's coming next, is in this story I told in it, because I just think it's such an amazing thing that happened for her. But she had been out that day and had I think she was with a friend, and a gust of wind came along just like this, and it blew and it picked up the wings, or maybe it blew them off the trees, but whatever happened, it was like a gust and a swirl of leaves, and then they all came raining down on her, and it gave her that feeling, that expectation of presence, so much so that she said to her friend, wouldn't it be amazing if that was an angel? And she just thought about it. Like it had put the thought in her head, wouldn't that be amazing if that was an angel? Because she was thinking about it. We had our session later that day. It was on her mind, and then this happened. And so then she comes into the session, and I'm in trance, and the angels are speaking to her, and she told me about this afterwards because I, of course, didn't remember it. But she says to the angels, she says, will I ever actually get to see you? And the angels said, you did. That was us in the leaves. That was us. And then they said, and they were super playful. I put the actual transcript of it in the book because it was so beautiful how they expressed it. They were clearly having so much fun. It was so joyful. But this paragraph absolutely brought me back to that example of here they really were the leaves, They were expressing themselves, and it did give her that feeling of like she knew it was them, but then part of her couldn't believe it was them. So she had to just think, oh, wouldn't it be neat if? But why did she think that? It's because she felt it. Some part of her knew it was the angels. So cool, right? So amazing. So that's their language, right? They're speaking to us in this way. They go on to say, next paragraph, we are not bound to language such as yourselves are speaking. We do, however, speak ourselves into tangibility. We have within us the capacity to diagnose, to analyze, to discuss, and to separate from what is, to the degree that is necessary to combine ourselves into the words that you are hearing. So they're saying they can have a conversation with us, is what they're telling us, that they can do it. If we insist, they do it like every Friday. I'm here with words from the angels, and this is them talking, so they can do it. But here they go on to say that we are not bound to language. They don't have to do it, but we do, however, speak ourselves into tangibility, so they can make tangible language. They have that ability. But they say, next paragraph, we have not the desire to remain as such. So they're willing to do it. They're happy to come in to help us to communicate. And I'm so grateful that they do it for us every Friday with these beautiful messages, but they just don't want to stay that way. It's not for them. And they go on to say, to stay within the confines of the spoken form of sound. They don't want to do it. They say, we prefer to vibrate like the wind, effervescent, temperamental at times, as if the jet stream might pick us up all at once and guide or direct us to where there is the greatest void or concentration of energy. So what I like about this is that we're getting a better understanding of where do angels go? I understand that there are way more angels here than there are humans. And so what do they do with themselves? There's another woman who sees angels called Laura Dern, and that's an actress. It's not Laura Dern. Byrne. Why am I forgetting her first name? You guys will know who I'm talking about. Lorna Byrne. There is a Laura Dern too, who's like in Jurassic Park, I think. And then Lorna Byrne, who's awesome. I actually met her when I was in Ireland. And she sees angels, and I'm pretty sure the ones she sees are the incarnated angels, which is just amazing, right? And she talks about that a lot in her books. But she and where was I going with that? I was just about to tell you, I just totally lost my place of thought. What was I just talking about? She says that there's these unemployed angels. She talks about it, that there's loads of angels out there that don't have a job, and that you can give them a job and they're so happy to have that job, that you should talk to your angels and put the unemployed angels into work, which is such a cool idea. I love it. And it's true. The angels of life understand that they told us there's way more here of them than us. And they love to be of service. But, so this idea that, so what are they doing with their time when they're not on a job, when they're not busy, when they're not, because they're here to serve. They said it earlier in this message, they're here to serve. So what do? Well, they say that they like to vibrate like the wind, effervescent and temperamental at times. So think about how the wind, slow, fast, a sudden breeze out of nowhere. Like think of them as almost like surfing in the wind, like moving like that, like that's their fun. That's their expression. This is who they are. And then they say, as if the jet stream might pick us up all at once and guide or direct us to where there is the greatest void or concentration of energy. So this is how they are attracted, right? They're attracted to energy. So that's why you hear that if you ever go to like any kind of place of prayer or worship, whatever it is, a church, a mosque, or wherever, cathedrals, anything, that those, because there are people there praying, there's a lot of energy, there will be a ton of angels that concentrate there. And same thing also, voids of energy are going to draw them. So yeah, fascinating. And it makes you think about if they're kind of playing on the wind or playing in the energy, that those areas of concentration of energy are going to give them a different experience. All right, so then they go on to say, and thus we move ourselves within the great flow of consciousness that is humanity, driven within the thought forms that you are creating. So here comes we and us and our thoughts, which are energy. Like our thoughts create. Our thoughts are highly creative, and that's one of the things they are fascinated about with us, is that we have this incredible divine spark inside of us, and we can create through thought forms, through through our feelings. So we find ourselves within the great flow of consciousness that is humanity. So those thought forms we create, think of our collective consciousness, that we have these great gusts of ideas that flow through, that we are like the wind, and the angels will flow just like they flow among the clouds. They flow among the human consciousness, right? Our collective consciousness, the thought forms that we are creating. We are amongst yourselves linguistically, vibrationally, emotionally, powerfully. We are within, around, and amongst yourselves. So we know they are part of our breath, right? They come in with the breath because we are that in spirit. We bring in inspiration. We bring in the inhale. We respirate, and then they say, and we shall become increasingly influential in the times that are coming. We shall make ourselves known to you more proudly, more deeply, more connectedly. So this is great news. So they go on to say, there shall be times of your survival where our presence is emanated from within ourselves, and you may see, you may see us, feel us, touch us, know us as personable, as if we are people. So in the future, there will be times that they literally will come into physical form, where we will be able to touch them and see them, and that they will be tangible angels, which would be incredible. And I think not like birth, not like coming in as a baby, but like vibrate into presence, and then boom, you'll be able to like, ooh, angel poke, incredible. And they said this would be times of your survival. So this would be like when we need them, when we're in a jam, when we really need their guidance, that they might show up physically and help us. And they say, you may sense from us the great care we have, that we take for humanity, the loving presence that combines within our nature to create fortitude, strength, amiability. We are love itself, wrapped within presencelessness. We are forever, always wrapped in the angelic concentration of essence. So, and so they mentioned earlier something about presence and about the divinity that infuses them with presence. So to me, what this says, the presence full, they say in this previous paragraph, presence full, we are endowed with divinity. So the way they come into physicality is by channeling divine energy, right? It's just like us, it takes energy, it takes divine energy for us to heal, for us to grow, to change. It takes divine energy. And so for them to come into physical form, it takes divine energy. So, but without that divine energy, without that extra infusion, their natural state is presenceless, is formless, is not physical. But they say that we are forever and always wrapped in the angelic concentration of essence, and that's how they've always described themselves to me from the get-go. When they first came through and I started channeling them, and of course I asked, like, who are you? What's your names? Which angels am I channeling? And they told me the first name, which was Uriel, but they did not, after that point, they're like, we do not want you to ask our names, because they said we want you to get comfortable with the concept of a collective, the understanding us as essence, that all various identities of the angelic realm exist within every ounce of essence, which is the angelic stuff that's out there, which is just like us. Like within the body, every cell carries the blueprint for the whole body, and that's angelic essence, that every identity is part of the collective, which is in the essence, which is everywhere, which is what we are. It's in our breath, it's everywhere, right? Which is amazing. All right, so this concept that they're going to become physical for us as we go, and this is after the shift in consciousness, that they'll be that they may all of a sudden like show up, which is incredible. All right, as we come into form, they say, descend into the structure, the rigidity of what is now formless. And this means that what is now formless is like the new future, where we're coming. So they're going to come into the structure and the rigidity of the new earth, which is now formless. It doesn't exist just yet. They say, as the new realities begin to stem from within you, because we are the reality creators who are creating the new reality, we shall find ourselves put in a place of great advantage to or for yourselves. So they're going to be increasingly of help to us. They say, in between the anchors that divide you from what is now and the new times coming, and we shall have within us the potentials to care for you, to provide for you, to assist and guide you in more meaningful ways. So this was really building on a beautiful message we got not that long ago, it was maybe 6 months ago, where they talked about miracles, and they said that they are going to be able to perform miracles much more often than they do now in the new future, which is incredible to think about. Okay, next paragraph, they say the vibrations of your own working, of what is required, what is needed for your comfort at the ready. So that's what they will have, right? That they'll come and help us in more meaningful ways, the vibrations of your own working. So basically, what is it that we individually need? Like for us, our individual self, they say of what is required for you, what is needed for your comfort at the ready. And they say, these we shall be empowered to assist with, not as we have been, not as the gust of wind, not as the fragment of consciousness that appears as if it is your own words of your own thinking. So think about my friend Susan, who was like, she was like, oh, wouldn't that be neat if that was an angel? It was an angel speaking to her, right? But she just thought it was her own thought. She didn't recognize that thought came in, that it was the angels actually speaking to her in that moment, until they told her later, right? Which is amazing. So that's how they used to do it. The gust of wind moving the leaves, the thought that comes into your mind that you think is your own thought, but it isn't. And they say, but it won't be like that in the future. They say, not as the gust that lifts you, as if or on your own thinking, not as the gust that lifts you when most needed. So that is that right now they will frequently come in as like a gust of, like if you've ever been really low, like if you've ever gone through the dark night of the soul, or if you've ever experienced depression, or even just had a really hard day and just been really down, or really down on yourself, or whatever it is, or felt really hopeless. And then if out of the blue something happens, it's almost like you're kind of going through like a thought cycle, like perseverant thinking, where you're like negative, and then all of a sudden it kind of cracks and breaks, and there's just a moment where it just feels like for a minute you kind of get popped out of that negative thought spiral. That is the angels. They will pop. It's like a gust of hope is what they call it. They break you free from these perseverant negative thought patterns. So that is one of their gifts that they do today. They do this now. So they say, so it won't be like that. It won't be like it's been, where it's been much more intangible. It's a question, like, is it us or is it our own thought or whatever. They say they not as that. They say, but as the physically tangible assistant that may present themselves at the ready. Incredible. Next paragraph. The guidance that we shall share shall be at the directive of your own journey. What is most required? When is our presence appropriate? So in other words, it's not going to come in. They're not going to come in and just erase all our karma. Although at that point, we actually have let go of our karma because we will have gone through the shift. That's a whole nother video. But in other words, in respecting our journey, they're not going to solve our problems for us. They're not going to, if we face a challenge and that challenge is meant for our growth, they're not going to come in and just be like, and we'll do it for you. It is, where is it appropriate for, where is it in alignment with what we want for ourselves? What is going to be supportive for us? And then when is it really most needed? So in times of great suffering and great need, in times of exaltation, we are always nearby, but need not physicalize. So, and think about that. They say that in times of exaltation, we are always nearby. That's because it's energy. Exaltation, when you're excited, when you're so, so happy, your vibe goes way up. And that vibe, that high vibe, that's a lot of energy. So you get a group of really happy people together and you get a high vibe, you get a lot of energy, a lot of angels are going to be attracted to that. So, but the times that they're going to actually physicalize is they're going to use their discernment and their discretion, and they'll come in knowing they will be able to know us, know our journey, and they'll know when is it appropriate for them to step in and when do we really need it, right? Like when we are suffering, when we have great need. Then they go on to say, in times of your greatest need, the density surrounds you to such a degree that you cannot always perceive us. In those times we shall mollify that, which is anxiety, with presence, and shall come to your side, sometimes felt, sometimes seen, with methods by which we can advise you. So they'll help us. And so it sounds like sometimes it will come in similarly to how they have been, where they will redirect us or guide us in ways that are non-physical, but sometimes seen, sometimes in physical presence. So both in the future. And it'll be right. And we will feel it as it's like that concept of sort of all of a sudden where you have a lot of anxiety and then something all of a sudden brings you peace. Something quiets anxiety, and that is the angels, right? Coming in to help, which is beautiful. Okay, so then not always in every instance, but where we are felt to be on earth and the consciousness already invited into presence within you. So this is super important. In placements of your own diagnosis of self as worthy of the light. So what they're saying here is there is something that's needed in order for them to come into presence. They can't just do it. They can come into presence for us, but we have to allow it. And so I'll read it again. So this is not always in every instance, but where we are felt to be on earth and the consciousness already invited, right? So when we've already invited them into our hearts, into presence within you. So when we're already have a relationship with the angels, in placements of your own diagnosis of self as worthy of the light, wherein your struggles are not buried within a consciousness that cannot elevate itself, but within a heart that is open to its truth. Here we may anchor our own light and emanate from within into your perception. So how is it that they do it? They do it through us, which is incredible. Like they do it through us. They come through our energy. And so they come through our heart. And so our heart has to be open. If they are going to physicalize, they have to come through our heart. Our heart has to be open and ready to receive them. We have to believe that we are worthy of it, right? It's beautiful to think about. It's beautiful to think about. And it doesn't mean we have to be perfect, right? It just means that we have to believe that we're worthy of the light, be worthy of their help, worthy of having an angel show up for us. And that opens the door for them to come through our heart and materialize in front of us. Amazing. Okay, a heart that is open to its own truth, which is that you are worthy. Yeah. Next paragraph, we wish to guide you, wherein there can be efforting done for your advantage. We wish to regain the solidity of our own footing within those moments. And so then they go on to say this next part, they talk about how, and I'll just explain first, is they talk about how they can, right now they can physicalize sometimes. You may hear like occasionally stories about someone will see a physical angel and then they disappear. And I've been told some amazing, miraculous stories about that, where someone had an interaction with someone who turned out to be an angel. So they have stepped on earth before, but it's rare. It's a rare thing that it happens now. And it may have been more common in the past, right? So, and that's what it sounds like to me here. So they say, we wish to guide you, wherein there can be efforting done for your advantage. We wish to regain the solidity of our own footing within these moments, solidity of our footing. So in other words, to take solid form. And they go on to say, for once we have made ourselves into physicality and presence in a moment. not as though birthed into the physical structure, but as beings who came and went, and so choosing to do so for the greater purpose of their own voyaging. So, in other words, they have had the experience of doing this before. Not all angels, I don't think, but angels could do this in the past. And maybe, like I said, maybe more so in the distant future, in the distant past. But now they're going to be able to do it with more as really required through us as needed. And it also makes sense that since humanity has gone through cycles, that we have been through other cycles where we were at a much higher vibration, where we probably were much more open to our truth. And at those times, I bet you angels were able to physicalize a lot more than they can today. Yeah, because of us, right? That's the key is us. Okay, last paragraph. In these times that are presenting themselves very soon, the greater part of our vocabulary will be expanding, and it may usher us into presence where needed, where desired, and wherein your own hearts create the opening. We say blessings, thank you, and goodbye. So I am in love with this message. I love it, love it, love it, love it. And it just brings together so many things that the angels have told us over the many years. Because you guys know we've been, and if you are new to my channel, there's like 5 years plus of content here. And you can go back and see there's a lot that they have told us about what it is to be an angel. But this is a new layer, a new depth of understanding that I have never had before. About understanding them I feel like I have just a much better conceptualization. The metaphors they used. I have this strong visual in my mind of the leaves and that feeling when you do see it take form, or like if you've ever seen like a plastic bag picked up by the wind and how it looks alive, and that aliveness creates an expectation of presence. Like it looks alive, but it's just the wind. It's just the wind infusing, inspiriting, right, a plastic bag. And so, but they are that, right? So they can come into form. They create the expectation of form. So what that makes me think of is that when they come into physical form, that physical form is probably no different than that plastic bag. It is just the expectation of form. And that expectation is dense enough, strong enough that we feel it as something physical. But it is not an actual incarnation. I just thought of that. Like, wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I'm going to have to sit with this message, I think, quite a bit, because I feel like it's really, for me, it's breaking open and breaking apart old conceptions and helping me to really understand them. And I just love the feeling, because I love the angels. I think of them as dear friends. And imagine if you had a really dear friend and you just found out something about them that broke open some false assumptions you'd made, that you just saw them in it. What if you just like saw them, they had this incredible talent you didn't even know about? I feel like I now understand them much deeper, more deeply than I did before. So thank you so much for going on the journey with me. Yeah, so cool to share this message together, you guys. It is a wild ride with the angels. Always something amazing and new that they have to share with us. So thank you so much for being here. And if you have come this far watching the video and you are not subscribed, now would be an amazing time to subscribe, because I share these messages every Friday. And you could just feel this uplifted and amazing every Friday. Why not? So turn on the notifications and join me for the next one. Okay, you guys, have a beautiful weekend. Sending you tons of love. Goodbye, and I'll see you next Friday live.